What if your anger is the very thing destroying your peace? Most people never stop to ask themselves this question. They spend years believing that anger protects them, gives them power, or proves their strength. But in reality, anger often becomes the chain that keeps them emotionally trapped. Every insult ruins their mood. Every disagreement disturbs their mind. Every act of disrespect stays in their head for hours or even days. They wake up thinking about arguments. They replay conversations in silence. They imagine revenge. They let strangers, co-workers, friends, family members, and even random people online control their emotional state without realizing it. Stoicism teaches something completely different. It teaches that your peace should never be placed in another person's hands. The moment someone can control your emotions, they gain power over your inner world. And the Stoics believed your inner world should remain untouchable. There is a reason emotionally calm people seem powerful without saying much. Their strength does not come from loud reactions or emotional outbursts. Their strength comes from self-control. While others are overwhelmed by emotions, they remain centered. While others panic, they think clearly. While others react impulsively, they observe quietly. This is rare in today's world because modern society constantly rewards emotional reactions. People react instantly to criticism. They argue over everything. They become offended by small things. Social media trains people to respond emotionally before thinking rationally. But Stoicism teaches that a person who cannot control their emotions will eventually become controlled by them. Think carefully about how many problems in life are caused by emotional reactions. Broken relationships. Regretful words. Fights. Stress. Anxiety. Resentment. Most of these problems begin with uncontrolled emotions. One angry moment can damage years of trust. One emotional decision can create long-term suffering. This is why the Stoics treated emotional discipline like a superpower. They understood that mastering yourself is harder than mastering anyone else. Most people try to dominate others while remaining slaves to their own emotions. Stoicism reverses this completely. It teaches that true power begins when you stop needing to control everyone around you and start learning how to control yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote many reflections about human behavior because he constantly dealt with difficult people. He was an emperor surrounded by pressure, betrayal, criticism, politics, and conflict. Yet he repeatedly reminded himself not to become emotionally corrupted by the behavior of others. Imagine the discipline required for that. Most people become angry over a rude comment online, yet this man ruled an empire while training himself to remain calm and rational. He understood something most people ignore. Your character matters more than the behavior of those around you. Someone else's negativity should never become an excuse for you to lose control of yourself. One of the biggest reasons people become angry so easily is because they expect the world to behave according to their personal preferences. They expect everyone to understand them, respect them, agree with them, appreciate them, and treat them fairly at all times. But reality does not work that way. Human beings are flawed. Some people are selfish. Some are immature. Some are dishonest. Some are insecure. Some are carrying pain that spills onto others. The Stoics accepted this reality instead of fighting against it emotionally. They understood that expecting perfection from imperfect people only creates disappointment and frustration. This does not mean you should tolerate abuse or allow people to mistreat you endlessly. Stoicism is not weakness. Stoicism is emotional intelligence. It teaches you to respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. There is a massive difference between calm strength and emotional chaos. A Stoic can walk away from disrespect without feeling weak because their self-worth does not depend on winning every argument or proving themselves to everyone. They understand that not every insult deserves attention. Not every criticism deserves a response. And not every conflict deserves your peace. One of the deepest truths in Stoicism is this: people reveal themselves through their actions. When someone lies, they reveal dishonesty within themselves. When someone insults others constantly, they reveal insecurity. When someone tries to provoke you emotionally, they reveal a lack of self-control. Most people make the mistake of absorbing other people's behavior personally, but the Stoics viewed human behavior differently. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" they asked, "What does this behavior reveal about them?" That shift changes everything emotionally. Imagine someone insults you publicly. The average person feels attacked immediately. Their heart races. Their mind fills with anger. They want revenge or retaliation. But a Stoic pauses first. They understand that another person's words cannot truly harm their character unless they allow it. An insult only becomes powerful when you emotionally accept it. Otherwise, it is simply noise coming from another human being. This perspective creates enormous emotional freedom because you stop giving every opinion the power to disturb your mind. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by their judgments about those events. This means your interpretation creates much of your emotional suffering. Two people can experience the exact same situation while reacting completely differently. One person hears criticism and becomes defensive. Another hears criticism and remains calm. One person experiences rejection and feels destroyed. Another accepts it peacefully and moves forward. The event itself is not always the source of suffering. The meaning attached to it creates the emotional intensity. This is why learning to observe your thoughts becomes one of the most important skills in Stoicism. Before anger appears, there is usually a thought happening silently inside your mind. Maybe you think someone disrespected you intentionally. Maybe you assume they are trying to embarrass you. Maybe you feel entitled to different treatment. These thoughts fuel emotional reactions. But when you slow down and question your interpretations, anger begins losing its power. Sometimes people act carelessly instead of maliciously. Sometimes they are stressed, distracted, insecure, or emotionally overwhelmed themselves. Not every negative action is a personal attack against you. Most anger is impulsive. It happens so quickly that people never stop to examine it. But Stoicism trains you to create space between the event and your reaction. That space is where wisdom lives. When someone says something offensive, you do not have to react immediately. When someone behaves rudely, you do not need to match their energy. When life becomes frustrating, you do not need to surrender your peace automatically. Emotional control begins with slowing down your reactions. The average person reacts first and thinks later. The Stoic thinks first and responds carefully. This small difference changes the entire direction of a person's life. Think about how many people destroy relationships because they spoke while angry. Think about how many people regret words they cannot take back. Anger creates temporary blindness. In emotional moments, people stop thinking clearly. They exaggerate situations. They assume the worst. They speak from ego instead of wisdom. And afterward, they are left cleaning up the damage their emotions created. Seneca described anger as a kind of temporary madness because it removes rational judgment. When anger controls someone, they often become a completely different person. Calmness disappears. Logic weakens. Perspective vanishes. This is why Stoicism teaches that emotional discipline is not optional if you want peace in life. Without emotional control, external events will constantly disturb your inner stability. There is also another hidden danger in anger that many people ignore. Anger is exhausting. It drains mental energy. It steals focus. It destroys peace from the inside. Many people carry anger for years without realizing how much damage it causes internally. They replay old betrayals repeatedly. They relive arguments in their mind every day. They hold resentment toward people who may not even think about them anymore. This emotional attachment becomes a prison. Stoicism teaches release because holding on to anger often hurts you more than the person who caused it. One of the most freeing realizations in life is understanding that you do not need to react to everything. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every disagreement deserves your emotional investment. Sometimes silence is strength. Sometimes walking away is wisdom. Sometimes protecting your peace matters more than proving a point. Emotionally mature people understand this deeply. If you are gaining value from this lesson, subscribe to Unshaken Mind and continue watching because the deeper principles ahead will completely change the way you handle disrespect, criticism, toxic people, and emotional triggers. These Stoic teachings can help you become calmer, mentally stronger, and emotionally untouchable in situations that once disturbed your peace. Many people believe calmness means weakness because they confuse emotional control with passivity. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. A calm person is not weak. A calm person is disciplined. Anyone can explode emotionally. Anyone can yell. Anyone can lose control. But remaining composed while facing pressure requires real strength. Remaining peaceful in difficult situations requires awareness, patience, and mastery over yourself. This is why emotionally disciplined people often intimidate others without trying. Their calmness cannot be manipulated easily. Their emotions are not available for public control. They do not seek validation desperately. They do not need to win every argument. They are comfortable remaining silent. They are secure enough to let immature people expose themselves through their own behavior. Over time, practicing Stoicism changes your emotional patterns completely. Situations that once triggered anger begin to lose power over you. You stop reacting instantly. You become more reflective. You begin protecting your energy more carefully. Instead of asking why people behave badly, you start focusing on maintaining your own character regardless of external circumstances. This creates emotional stability that most people spend their entire lives searching for. Eventually, you realize one of the greatest truths in Stoicism. Peace does not come from controlling people. Peace comes from controlling yourself. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that many people will never behave the way you want them to. No matter how kind you are, how patient you are, or how much respect you show, there will always be people who misunderstand you, criticize you, judge you unfairly, or try to provoke you emotionally. Most people spend years fighting this reality internally. They become frustrated every time someone disappoints them. They become angry whenever life feels unfair. But Stoicism teaches that suffering often begins when you demand that reality behave differently than it does. The more you resist human nature, the more emotional pain you create for yourself. The Stoics believed that emotional freedom begins with acceptance. Not passive acceptance that allows weakness or abuse, but wise acceptance of reality itself. Human beings are imperfect. Some people are selfish. Some are dishonest. Some are immature. Some are driven by ego, jealousy, insecurity, or anger. Once you fully understand this, you stop being shocked by people's behavior. And when you stop being shocked, you stop reacting emotionally to everything around you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that he would encounter difficult people every day. Imagine the wisdom behind that mindset. Most people wake up expecting smooth interactions and emotional comfort from the world. Then the moment reality disappoints them, they lose their peace. But Marcus prepared his mind in advance. He expected arrogance. He expected selfishness. He expected ignorance. Not because he hated humanity, but because he understood human nature realistically. This preparation gave him emotional stability because difficult behavior no longer surprised him. One of the reasons anger grows so quickly is because of unrealistic expectations. You expect loyalty from people who have never mastered loyalty within themselves. You expect emotional maturity from emotionally unstable people. You expect honesty from people who lie to themselves daily. And when they fail to meet your expectations, frustration appears. Stoicism teaches you to see people clearly instead of idealizing them emotionally. When you understand someone's character honestly, their actions stop shocking you. This perspective changes relationships completely. Instead of constantly trying to change people, you begin focusing on understanding them. Some people are naturally negative. Some seek attention through drama. Some enjoy conflict because chaos distracts them from their own inner emptiness. Once you recognize these patterns, you stop taking everything personally. Their behavior becomes information instead of emotional poison. Most anger comes from ego. The ego constantly demands recognition, respect, agreement, and validation. The ego wants to feel important, admired, and superior. So whenever someone challenges your pride, anger rises immediately. Someone ignores you, and your ego feels insulted. Someone criticizes you, and your ego feels attacked. Someone disagrees with you, and your ego wants to fight back. But Stoicism teaches that your peace becomes stronger when your ego becomes smaller. A person who constantly needs validation from others will never have lasting emotional stability. Their emotions will always depend on how people treat them. One compliment makes them happy. One insult destroys their mood. One rejection makes them feel worthless. This is emotional slavery. Stoicism teaches independence from external approval. Your value should not rise or fall based on another person's opinion. Epictetus taught that if someone speaks badly about you and the criticism is true, improve yourself. If the criticism is false, ignore it. Think about how powerful that mindset is. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy defending themselves against every opinion. They obsess over what others think. They replay criticism repeatedly in their minds. But Stoicism teaches that another person's opinion cannot define your character. Only your actions can do that. Imagine how peaceful life becomes once you stop needing everyone to understand you. Many people suffer emotionally because they desperately want approval from people who are incapable of giving it. They try to explain themselves endlessly. They argue to protect their image. They seek acceptance from individuals who may never truly appreciate them. But Stoicism teaches that peace comes from self-respect, not public approval. This does not mean you stop caring about people completely. Stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is emotional wisdom. You can love people deeply while understanding their flaws realistically. You can care about others without depending on them for your emotional stability. The Stoics valued relationships, friendship, loyalty, and compassion, but they also understood that attachment without wisdom creates suffering. One of the greatest forms of emotional maturity is learning how to separate your identity from other people's behavior. If someone lies to you, that reflects their character, not your worth. If someone betrays you, that reveals something broken within them, not within you. If someone insults you unfairly, their words expose their mindset more than your value. Most people absorb negativity personally because they tie their self-worth to external treatment. Stoicism teaches you to build self-worth internally instead. This is why emotionally strong people rarely react impulsively. They understand that emotional reactions often give power away. When someone provokes you and you instantly explode with anger, they gain control over your emotions. But when you remain calm, thoughtful, and composed, you keep your power. Calmness protects your mind. Emotional impulsiveness weakens it. Think about how many arguments become worse simply because people react too quickly. Someone says something offensive, and instead of pausing, the other person immediately attacks back emotionally. The conflict escalates. Hurtful words are exchanged. Relationships become damaged. All because neither person paused long enough to think clearly. Stoicism teaches that the first victory in any difficult situation is victory over yourself. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response possible. Not because you are afraid to speak, but because you understand that not every conflict deserves your energy. Weak people often mistake calmness for weakness because they believe aggression equals strength. But true strength is emotional discipline. True strength is remaining peaceful when others try to pull you into chaos. There is also wisdom in recognizing that many people are fighting invisible battles. Some people behave badly because they are overwhelmed internally. Another important Stoic lesson is understanding the temporary nature of life. Most things people become angry about are incredibly small when viewed from a larger perspective. A rude comment. A disagreement. A social media argument. An insult from someone you may never see again. Yet people allow these moments to steal hours, days, even years of emotional peace. Stoicism constantly reminds you to ask yourself one important question: will this matter in the long run? Most of the time, the answer is no. This perspective creates emotional clarity. Instead of reacting emotionally to every inconvenience, you begin protecting your peace carefully. You realize your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your emotional stability is valuable. And not everyone deserves access to it. If you are enjoying this deep Stoic wisdom so far, subscribe to Unshaken Mind and continue watching, because the lessons ahead will help you master emotional control, build inner peace, and become mentally stronger in ways most people never achieve. There is a powerful transformation that happens when you stop expecting life to be perfectly comfortable. You stop feeling personally attacked by every difficulty. You stop becoming emotionally overwhelmed by human flaws. You stop demanding perfection from yourself and others. Instead, you begin observing life more calmly and wisely. Over time, your emotional reactions weaken because your understanding becomes stronger. Situations that once triggered anger begin to feel smaller. You become slower to react and quicker to understand. You start choosing peace over ego, wisdom over impulsiveness, clarity over emotional chaos. And eventually, you discover something life-changing. The calmer you become internally, the less power the external world has over you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that controlling others will bring them peace. They try to control how people speak to them, how people treat them, how people think about them, and how life unfolds around them. But the harder they try to control everything externally, the more frustrated they become internally. Stoicism teaches that true peace begins when you understand the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. This single lesson has the power to completely transform your emotional life. Most anger comes from fighting reality. Someone behaves unfairly, and you demand that they should have behaved differently. Life becomes difficult, and you insist it should have been easier. Someone misunderstands you, and you become emotionally consumed trying to force them to see your perspective. But reality does not bend itself to human emotions. The Stoics understood that emotional suffering increases whenever you attach your peace to things outside your control. Epictetus taught one of the most important principles in Stoicism: some things are within your control, and some things are not. Your thoughts, choices, attitudes, and actions belong to you. But other people's opinions, emotions, behaviors, and judgments do not. Once you truly understand this distinction, your emotional reactions begin to weaken. You stop wasting energy trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. Think about how much suffering comes from trying to manage other people emotionally. You want someone to appreciate you more. You want someone to stop criticizing you. You want someone to understand your intentions. You want someone to behave differently. But no matter how much effort you put in, you cannot force emotional maturity, honesty, or wisdom into another human being. Stoicism teaches you to release that burden. Focus on your own character. Focus on your own actions. Focus on your own mind. That is where your real power exists. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting everything blindly. It means understanding where your energy should go. Imagine carrying heavy bags every single day that do not belong to you. Eventually you become exhausted. That is what emotional attachment to uncontrollable things does to the mind. People carry anger over other people's choices. They carry frustration over situations they cannot change. They carry resentment toward the past. And slowly, their peace disappears under the weight of things they were never meant to control. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to focus only on what was within his power. Even as emperor, he could not control betrayal, criticism, war, disease, or public opinion completely. Yet instead of becoming emotionally consumed by uncontrollable events, he trained himself to respond with wisdom and discipline. This is one of the deepest forms of strength. Not controlling the world around you, but mastering the way you respond to it. Many people become angry because they feel entitled to fairness from life. They believe that if they're good people, life should reward them with comfort, respect, and smooth experiences. But Stoicism teaches that life is not designed to satisfy personal expectations. Difficulties are part of existence. Disappointment is part of existence. Conflict is part of existence. Once you stop resisting this reality emotionally, your mind becomes calmer. A storm does not ask for your permission before arriving. Rain does not care whether you wanted sunshine. In the same way, life will sometimes bring uncomfortable people and painful experiences into your path without asking whether you are ready. The Stoics believed wisdom comes from adapting to reality instead of emotionally collapsing because reality failed to match your preferences. This is why emotionally strong people rarely panic during difficult situations. They understand that emotional resistance often creates more suffering than the situation itself. A calm mind sees solutions more clearly. An angry mind sees enemies everywhere. When emotions take over, judgment weakens. Small problems begin to feel enormous. temporary setbacks feel permanent. Stoicism teaches you to remain steady enough internally to think clearly even during emotional pressure. One of the most dangerous habits people develop is emotional overreaction. A small inconvenience ruins their entire day. One rude comment destroys their mood. One criticism causes endless overthinking. Their emotional state becomes dependent on external circumstances. But Stoicism teaches emotional independence. Your peace should not collapse every time life becomes uncomfortable. Imagine someone insulting you. Most people react instantly because they feel emotionally threatened. Their ego interprets the insult as an attack on their identity. But a Stoic pauses and reflects first. Is the insult true? If it is true, improve yourself. If it is false, why become disturbed by something untrue? This mindset removes enormous emotional suffering because you stop treating every negative opinion like a personal emergency. There is incredible power in refusing to react impulsively. When someone expects anger from you and receives calmness instead, they lose the ability to manipulate your emotions. Calmness becomes a form of protection. It prevents temporary emotions from controlling permanent decisions. Many people think emotional reactions prove authenticity. They believe exploding with anger shows honesty or strength. But uncontrolled emotions often reveal weakness instead. Anyone can react emotionally. Emotional discipline is far more difficult. Remaining calm when provoked requires awareness, patience, and inner stability. This is why Stoicism places such high value on self-mastery. Seneca warned repeatedly about the destructive nature of anger because he understood how quickly it damages judgment. Angry people often say things they later regret. They exaggerate situations emotionally. They destroy relationships impulsively. Then after the emotion fades, they are left facing the consequences of actions taken during moments of emotional blindness. Think about how many conflicts could disappear if people simply paused before reacting. Most arguments grow because both people become emotionally defensive at the same time. Nobody listens. Nobody reflects. Both sides only focus on protecting their ego. Stoicism teaches that wisdom often begins with silence and observation. You do not need to respond immediately to everything. Sometimes the strongest action is restraint. Another powerful Stoic principle is understanding that your mind becomes shaped by what you constantly focus on. If you spend your life focusing on insults, negativity, disrespect, and unfairness, your inner world becomes filled with emotional tension. But if you focus on discipline, growth, peace, gratitude, and perspective, your inner world becomes calmer and stronger. Most people underestimate how much mental energy they waste daily. They replay arguments repeatedly in their mind. They imagine revenge scenarios. They obsess over things people said years ago. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward. Stoicism teaches that every moment spent trapped in resentment is a moment stolen from your peace. There is also wisdom in recognizing that not every opinion matters equally. Many people allow criticism from unhappy, bitter, or emotionally immature individuals to disturb their confidence deeply. But why should someone lacking wisdom determine your emotional state? Stoicism teaches discernment. Learn whose opinions deserve your attention and whose opinions should remain meaningless noise. This becomes easier once your self-worth stops depending on external validation. A person who truly knows their values internally cannot be shaken easily by random judgment. They understand that character matters more than reputation. Reputation depends on other people's opinions. Character depends on your actions. And Stoicism teaches that protecting your character matters far more than protecting your image. If you are still watching, subscribe to Unshaken Mind because the next lessons will help you become emotionally untouchable, mentally disciplined, and calm in situations that once controlled your emotions. These Stoic teachings are not just philosophy. They are practical tools for surviving modern life with clarity and inner peace. One of the most liberating realizations in Stoicism is understanding that you do not need to win every battle. Some arguments are not worth your peace. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some situations cannot be fixed immediately. Emotional maturity means recognizing when to engage and when to let go. Many people exhaust themselves trying to defend their ego constantly. They need the last word. They need to prove themselves right. They need validation from everyone around them. But Stoicism teaches that peace is often found in detachment. Not detachment from caring, but detachment from emotional dependence on outcomes you cannot fully control. Over time, as you practice these principles, something powerful begins to happen. Your emotional reactions slow down. Situations that once triggered intense anger begin losing their power over you. You become more thoughtful, more patient, and more stable internally. You stop reacting like every inconvenience is a personal attack. You stop allowing random people to control your inner world. And eventually, you realize something life-changing. The less you try to control everything outside yourself, the more control you gain within yourself. One of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is the ability to remain calm in situations that once would have destroyed your peace. Most people live in a constant state of emotional reaction. Their mood changes depending on how others treat them. If people praise them, they feel confident. If people criticize them, they feel broken. If life goes smoothly, they feel peaceful. If difficulties appear, they become overwhelmed. Their emotional state depends entirely on external conditions. Stoicism teaches a different way to live. It teaches that real peace comes from building stability within yourself instead of searching for stability outside yourself. The truth is that the external world will always remain unpredictable. People will disappoint you unexpectedly. Situations will change suddenly. Problems will appear without warning. You cannot control everything life brings into your path. But you can train yourself to stop collapsing emotionally every time life becomes uncomfortable. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. It teaches resilience instead of emotional fragility. Most anger begins long before the actual emotional explosion. It starts with small habits of thought. Negative assumptions. Overthinking. Taking things personally. replaying painful situations repeatedly. The mind slowly builds emotional tension until eventually something small triggers a large reaction. Stoicism teaches you to interrupt this process early by becoming aware of your thoughts before they control your emotions. Epictetus believed that emotional suffering often comes from the stories people tell themselves about situations. Imagine someone ignores your message. One person immediately thinks, "They do not respect me." Another person thinks, "Maybe they are busy." Same situation. Completely different emotional outcome. Most people never realize how often their assumptions create unnecessary suffering. They interpret situations negatively without evidence, then react emotionally to the interpretation instead of reality itself. This is why Stoicism emphasizes awareness so strongly. You must learn to observe your mind carefully. Observe the thoughts that create anger. Observe the assumptions that create frustration. Observe the expectations that create disappointment. The moment you become conscious of these mental patterns, you begin reclaiming control over your emotions. Many people are emotionally controlled by pride without realizing it. Pride constantly wants recognition, validation, and superiority. Pride hates criticism. Pride hates being ignored. Pride hates losing arguments. So whenever reality threatens the ego, anger appears immediately. But Stoicism teaches humility because humility protects peace. A humble person does not need constant validation from others to feel secure internally. Think about how much conflict in life is caused by wounded ego. Friends stop speaking over pride. Families become divided over pride. Relationships collapse because neither person wants to let go of pride. Entire lives become filled with resentment because people refuse to release their attachment to being right all the time. Stoicism teaches that protecting your peace matters more than protecting your ego. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that fame, praise, criticism, and public opinion are temporary. Imagine how freeing that mindset becomes. Most people spend enormous amounts of emotional energy worrying about what others think. They fear judgment constantly. They replay conversations in their mind wondering how they were perceived. But Marcus understood something important. Other people's opinions change constantly. If your peace depends on public approval, your peace will never remain stable for long. This is why Stoicism teaches inner validation instead of external dependence. Your self-worth should come from your values, your actions, and your character, not from applause or approval. When your confidence depends entirely on how others treat you, you become emotionally fragile. But when your confidence comes from self-respect and discipline, you become far more difficult to shake emotionally. One of the most powerful Stoic habits is learning how to pause before reacting. Most emotional damage happens because people respond too quickly. Someone insults them, and they attack back immediately. Someone frustrates them, and they explode emotionally. Later, after emotions calm down, regret appears. The Stoics understood that emotions are temporary, but consequences can last for years. Imagine how different your life becomes when you stop reacting impulsively. Instead of speaking from anger, you speak from clarity. Instead of escalating conflict emotionally, you remain composed. Instead of allowing frustration to control your behavior, you maintain discipline. This creates a kind of emotional strength that people notice immediately. Calmness has a silent power that emotional chaos never achieves. Loud reactions often reveal inner instability. But calmness signals control. Calmness signals confidence. Calmness signals wisdom. This is why emotionally disciplined people often appear strong without needing to dominate others aggressively. There is also a hidden freedom in no longer needing to prove yourself constantly. Many people become angry because they feel misunderstood or underestimated. They desperately want others to recognize their value. But Stoicism teaches that your worth does not decrease simply because someone fails to see it. A diamond remains valuable even if someone mistakes it for a stone. Once you stop seeking validation from everyone around you, emotional peace becomes easier to maintain. Criticism loses some of its power. Rejection loses some of its sting. Disrespect becomes less emotionally destructive because your identity is no longer dependent on external approval. Seneca warned that anger often punishes the person holding it more than the person receiving it. Think carefully about that. When you stay angry for days, who suffers continuously? You do. Your mind loses peace. Your body carries stress. Your thoughts become consumed by negativity. Meanwhile, the other person may continue living normally without even thinking about the situation anymore. This is why Stoicism teaches emotional release instead of emotional attachment. Holding on to resentment only extends your suffering. The longer you replay painful experiences mentally, the longer those experiences continue controlling your emotional state. Letting go is not weakness. Sometimes letting go is one of the strongest decisions a person can make. Another important Stoic principle is remembering how short life truly is. Most people behave as if they have endless time, yet they waste enormous portions of life trapped in anger, bitterness, and unnecessary conflict. Stoicism constantly reminds you that life is temporary. Every moment spent consumed by emotional negativity is a moment you can never recover again. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing how many years were lost to resentment over things that ultimately did not matter. Arguments, opinions, ego battles, temporary conflicts. The Stoics wanted people to see life from a broader perspective so they could stop shrinking their peace over small events. This broader perspective creates emotional wisdom. Instead of reacting intensely to every inconvenience, you begin asking yourself deeper questions. Will this matter a year from now? Is this worth sacrificing my peace over? Does this situation deserve my emotional energy? Often the answer becomes clear very quickly. Most people never develop emotional discipline because they never practice it intentionally. They wait until life becomes difficult before trying to control themselves emotionally. But Stoicism teaches that emotional mastery is built daily through awareness, reflection, patience, and self-control. Every frustrating situation becomes an opportunity to strengthen your mind. If someone insults you, practice calmness. If someone disappoints you, practice acceptance. If life becomes difficult, practice resilience. Slowly, your emotional reactions begin changing. Situations that once overwhelmed you become manageable. Things that once ruined your mood lose their power. You stop feeling emotionally controlled by every external event. If you are enjoying this deep journey into Stoicism, subscribe to Unshaken Mind and continue watching, because the final lessons ahead will show you how to become emotionally untouchable, mentally stronger, and completely unshaken by toxic people, criticism, and life's chaos. One of the greatest transformations in Stoicism happens when you stop expecting the world to protect your peace and start learning how to protect it yourself. You realize that emotional control is not about suppressing emotions completely. It is about refusing to let emotions rule your life. Over time, your mind becomes calmer. Your reactions become slower and wiser. Your inner world becomes stronger than the chaos around you. And eventually, something incredible happens. The same situations that once disturbed your peace no longer have the power to shake you deeply anymore. At some point in life, you begin to realize that the greatest battle is not against other people. It is against yourself. Against your impulses. Against your ego. Against your uncontrolled emotions. Most people spend years trying to change the world around them while completely ignoring the chaos inside their own mind. They blame others for their anger. They blame situations for their frustration. They blame life for their emotional suffering. But Stoicism teaches one of the most powerful truths ever discovered: your peace begins the moment you take responsibility for your inner world. This does not mean you become emotionless or disconnected from life. Stoicism is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming steady. There is a huge difference. Emotionless people shut down completely. Stoic people remain deeply aware of emotions while refusing to become controlled by them. They feel anger, disappointment, sadness, and frustration just like everyone else, but they do not allow those emotions to dominate their behavior. This is emotional mastery. Most people react emotionally because they live unconsciously. They never pause to examine their thoughts. They never question their emotional patterns. They simply react automatically to whatever happens around them. Someone criticizes them, and they become defensive instantly. Someone disrespects them, and anger takes over immediately. But Stoicism teaches awareness first. Before you can master your emotions, you must first understand them. Epictetus believed that freedom begins in the mind. A person who cannot control their reactions is not truly free because their emotions are constantly controlled by external events. Think about that deeply. If random people can ruin your peace whenever they want, then your emotional state belongs to the world instead of belonging to you. This is why Stoicism places such enormous importance on self-discipline. Self-discipline protects your peace. It allows you to choose your response instead of reacting impulsively. It gives you the ability to stay calm when others lose control. And in a world filled with emotional chaos, that kind of stability becomes extremely rare. Many people spend their entire lives chasing emotional comfort. They avoid discomfort constantly. They avoid criticism. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid rejection. But Stoicism teaches that discomfort is part of growth. Emotional resilience develops when you learn how to face uncomfortable situations without collapsing mentally. Imagine a person who becomes angry every time life becomes difficult. Their emotional state will always remain fragile because life will never stop testing them. Difficult people will always exist. Stressful situations will always appear. Disappointment will always happen. But a Stoic trains themselves to become stronger than the circumstances instead of demanding easier circumstances all the time. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the importance of maintaining character regardless of external conditions. He understood that you cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can choose the kind of person you become because of it. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "How can I respond wisely to this situation?" That shift alone creates emotional growth. Problems stop becoming purely sources of suffering and begin becoming opportunities for self-mastery. Every insult becomes practice for patience. Every frustration becomes practice for calmness. Every disappointment becomes practice for acceptance. Stoicism transforms life itself into training for your mind. One of the deepest forms of strength is the ability to remain kind without becoming weak. Many people think harshness equals power because they misunderstand strength completely. Real strength is not emotional aggression. Real strength is emotional control. Anyone can become bitter after pain. Anyone can become angry after betrayal. But remaining calm, disciplined, and wise despite life's difficulties requires extraordinary inner strength. This does not mean allowing toxic people unlimited access to your life. Stoicism teaches boundaries as well. You can protect your peace without hatred. You can walk away from harmful people without becoming emotionally consumed by resentment. Sometimes the wisest decision is distance. Not revenge. Not endless arguments. Simply distance and peace. There is also tremendous freedom in accepting that not everyone will understand you. Some people will judge you unfairly no matter what you do. Some people will dislike you without reason. Some people will project their insecurities onto you. If your happiness depends on universal approval, you will suffer constantly. Stoicism teaches you to focus on living with integrity instead of chasing validation endlessly. Seneca warned that people often suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how true that is. Many people spend hours imagining arguments that never happen. They overthink criticism repeatedly. They create emotional pain through endless mental replaying of situations. Stoicism teaches you to return to the present moment instead of becoming trapped inside imagined suffering. The present moment is where peace exists. Not in replaying yesterday's anger. Not in fearing tomorrow's problems. Right here. Right now. Most people lose peace because their mind constantly travels into regret, resentment, anxiety, and overthinking. But Stoicism trains you to remain grounded in reality instead of emotional imagination. Another important lesson is learning that silence is often more powerful than reaction. Some people provoke others because they seek emotional responses. They want attention. They want conflict. They want control. But when you refuse to react emotionally, you remove their power completely. Calmness can end conflicts that anger only intensifies. Imagine how different your life becomes once you stop needing to prove yourself constantly. You no longer feel obligated to respond to every insult. You no longer feel emotionally destroyed by criticism. You no longer waste energy trying to convince everyone to understand you. Your mind becomes quieter, lighter, more peaceful. This is one of the greatest gifts Stoicism offers: emotional independence. Your peace no longer depends entirely on external circumstances. Even during difficult situations, you remain centered internally. Even when facing criticism, you remain stable. Even when dealing with toxic people, you protect your inner world carefully. Most people never experience this level of peace because they never train their mind intentionally. They train their body. They train for money. They train for success. But they neglect the discipline of emotional mastery. Stoicism teaches that your mind deserves training just as much as any other part of your life. Every single day gives you opportunities to practice. Traffic tests your patience. Criticism tests your ego. Disappointment tests your acceptance. Conflict tests your self-control. Instead of viewing these situations as interruptions to peace, Stoicism teaches you to view them as exercises for building peace internally. And slowly, over time, something remarkable begins happening. You stop reacting the way you used to. Situations that once consumed your thoughts no longer dominate your mind. People who once provoked you lose their emotional control over you. You become calmer, wiser, and emotionally stronger. You begin realizing that peace is not something you find somewhere outside yourself. Peace is something you build internally through discipline, awareness, and perspective. The world around you may remain chaotic, but your inner world becomes steady. If you have made it this far, subscribe to Unshaken Mind and continue joining this journey into Stoic wisdom. Every lesson is designed to help you become mentally stronger, emotionally disciplined, and impossible to break in a world filled with stress, negativity, and distraction. Never forget this powerful truth. People may insult you. Life may test you. Difficulties may appear unexpectedly. But no one can truly destroy your peace unless you hand them the power to do so. The Stoics understood something timeless. The strongest person is not the loudest person. Not the most aggressive person. Not the person who wins every argument. The strongest person is the one who has mastered themselves. And once you master yourself, very little in this world will ever be able to control you again. Thank you for watching Unshaken Mind. If this video helped you see anger, peace, and emotional control differently, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future lessons on Stoicism, self-discipline, mental strength, and emotional mastery. Share this video with someone who needs more peace in their life, and continue watching more videos from Unshaken Mind to keep building a calm, powerful, and unshakable mind.